They say time is an illusion, but in the teachings of Islam, time is a trust, a divine measurement that counts down to a reality far greater than anything this world can offer. The Day of Judgment, Yawm al-Qiyamah, is not a tale from ancient scriptures, nor a far-off event meant to frighten the faithful. It is a certainty, a promise, a moment etched into the future of every soul that has ever walked this earth. And as strange as it may sound, its signs are not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes they unfold in the smallest corners of everyday life, quiet, unnoticed, yet profoundly significant. Most of us are familiar with the major signs: the rise of the Antichrist, the return of Prophet Isa, peace be upon him, the sun rising from the west, and the coming of the beast. These are the dramatic markers of the final age, often discussed in sermons and books. But what about the others, the ones rarely mentioned, the ones already unfolding? What if the clock is ticking not with thunder, but with silence? Not with explosions in the sky, but with subtle shifts in society, values, and hearts? We are entering an age where truth is blurred, where distractions are infinite, and where the sacred becomes ordinary. It is in this atmosphere that the lesser-known signs emerge, prophecies from the tongue of the Prophet Muhammad that speak directly to the world we see around us today. They may not make the headlines, but they whisper truths that should shake us to our core. This is not a message of doom, but a message of awakening, because the signs are not just there to inform, they're there to transform. And if we choose to listen, we might just reclaim the purpose we were created for. The clock is ticking. Are we paying attention? In one of the most sobering hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad, he warned that knowledge would not vanish from the earth all at once, nor would it be snatched away in a single moment. Rather, it would disappear gradually, through the death of the true scholars. He said, "Indeed, Allah does not take away knowledge by removing it from the people, but He takes it away by the death of scholars. Until when no scholar remains, the people will take ignorant ones as leaders. They will be asked, and they will issue religious rulings without knowledge, so they will go astray and will lead others astray." This profound narration isn't just a prophecy, it's a reflection of what we are beginning to witness around us. When a scholar dies, it's not merely a funeral that takes place, it's the extinction of a library, the silencing of decades of wisdom, humility, and sincere worship. These were individuals who carried not just information, but the light of understanding. They knew how to apply knowledge with balance, with fear of Allah, and with deep love for the Ummah. They spoke with caution, cried in prayer, and lived lives of sacrifice, often unknown to the masses. But slowly, as they pass away, we are left with a gaping hole, one that flashy speakers and viral influencers cannot fill. In our time, knowledge is becoming confused with popularity. Platforms reward charisma, not depth. A person may master eloquence, gather followers, and wear the outer garments of piety, but lack the inner substance of true understanding. And so fatwas are issued without due process. Sacred laws are bent to fit modern trends. The halal and haram are played with like opinions. Worse still, many of those giving spiritual guidance are not qualified, yet they are elevated because they entertain, because they trend, because they stir emotion. The loss of real scholars is not just the loss of religious answers, it's the loss of perspective, of context, of caution. Without them, we become a ship without a compass, vulnerable to waves of confusion and falsehood. And when knowledge is no longer preserved through the hearts of the righteous, the door opens for ignorance to wear the mask of authority. This sign isn't coming, it has arrived, quietly, gradually. And unless we seek out true knowledge, support sincere scholars, and humble ourselves before the tradition passed down through generations, we may wake up in a world where truth still exists, but is no longer recognized. The Prophet Muhammad once foretold that a time would come when people would boast about their mosques. At first glance, this might seem harmless. What could be wrong with beautifying a house of Allah? But the deeper meaning behind this prophecy is not about the architecture or the materials. It's about the spiritual emptiness that creeps in when the focus shifts from worship to appearance, from submission to status. Across the Muslim world today, we see stunning masajid rising with magnificent domes, shimmering chandeliers, imported marble, digital calligraphy, and towering minarets that touch the sky. These buildings are breathtaking to behold, and for many, they are a source of pride. But when you step inside during prayer time, something is missing, not from the walls or the ceilings, but from the hearts. The very purpose of the mosque, to gather in remembrance, to humble oneself before Allah, to strengthen the bonds of brotherhood and sisterhood, is often overshadowed by silence, or worse, by empty rows and locked doors. Many mosques have become places of ceremony, not sincerity. People dress their best for Friday prayers but leave before the khutbah ends. Some come only for Eid or weddings, while the daily prayers echo in empty halls. Others are more concerned with funding expansions than expanding their understanding of the Quran. There are even cases where disputes over control, funding, or leadership have turned masajid into battlegrounds for egos rather than sanctuaries of peace. This was the warning of the Prophet, a time when the outer beauty of the mosque would hide the inner hollowness of its people. It's not a condemnation of building beautiful places of worship, but a reminder that beauty without devotion is an illusion. A golden dome cannot replace a humble prostration. A glowing chandelier cannot illuminate a darkened heart. The true essence of the masjid is not in its structure, but in its purpose, to bring us closer to Allah. As we admire the grandeur of our mosques, we must ask, do our hearts enter with awe and humility? Or are we merely passing through a beautiful building, disconnected from the one it was built to glorify? The masjid should not only impress the eye, it should transform the soul. The Messenger of Allah spoke of a time when the years would feel like months, the months like weeks, and the weeks like mere days. He foretold that one of the signs of the approaching hour would be the rapid passing of time. At first, it's easy to attribute this to the rise of technology. Smartphones, instant messaging, high-speed travel, and the digital world that compresses days into moments. But this sign is not about gadgets or internet speeds. It is something deeper, something spiritual. Look around, ask anyone today, young or old, and you'll hear the same lament. Time is flying. But why does it feel that way? It's not that the hours have decreased. They remain 24 in every day. Yet there is a profound lack of barakah, a sacred blessing that once stretched time, giving it meaning, presence, and peace. Today our lives are busier than ever, yet more hollow. We rush through the hours, ticking off tasks, attending meetings, replying to messages, scrolling through endless feeds. And still, we feel unaccomplished, unsettled, unfulfilled. This isn't just about being occupied. It's about being distracted. Our days are cluttered with noise, but our hearts are empty of remembrance. The early generations of Muslims achieved greatness with fewer tools, yet more clarity. They had less distraction, but more devotion. Their moments were anchored in purpose, and thus their time bore fruit. The Prophet didn't say that time would be shorter, he said it would feel shorter. That's a difference the soul can detect, even if the clock cannot. It's the subtle spiritual erosion that comes when we lose connection to Allah, when our intentions are diluted, and when our lives are no longer aligned with what truly matters. This sign is already here, surrounding us daily, and it's not something we can reverse with productivity hacks or calendar apps. The only way to restore the blessing in our time is to return to the one who created it, to slow down not in pace but in heart, to be present in our worship, sincere in our actions, and mindful of how we spend every breath. Because time isn't just passing quickly, it's taking us with it. The question is, where are we going? In a powerful narration, the Prophet Muhammad warned that near the end of time, the voices of the wicked would be raised within the masajid. This isn't simply about volume, it's about who is speaking and what is being said. The masjid, once a place of quiet submission, sincere learning, and communal peace will be tainted by the voices of those who do not honor its sanctity. The very walls that once echoed with Quran, tears, and remembrance will begin to resonate with ego, argument, and disorder. Today, we see glimpses of this prophecy unfolding. There are mosques where heated disputes erupt over leadership, where community politics take precedence over prayer, and where self-appointed figures stand at the pulpit, not with humility, but with arrogance and personal agendas. These are not the voices of guidance. They are voices that divide, voices that corrupt, voices that echo worldly ambition rather than divine submission. The warning is not just about noise, it's about influence. When those lacking sincerity and true knowledge take control of the platform, the spiritual fabric of the mosque begins to unravel. Worse still is the normalization of this behavior. People grow desensitized. They no longer feel the weight of standing in a sacred place. Debates happen where du'as should rise. Judgmental glances replace brotherly compassion. The mosque becomes a place to show face, not to face Allah. And the voices that dominate are not those of the righteous, but of the loudest, the proudest, and sometimes the most corrupt. The Prophet's warning is not about the future anymore, it is about the present. And it is a call for all of us to reflect. Who do we give our attention to? Who do we allow to speak on behalf of our faith? And most importantly, what role do we play in restoring the sanctity of the masjid? Because when the voices of the wicked grow louder, the hearts of the sincere must not grow silent. One of the most striking prophecies from the Hadith of Jibril is when the Prophet Muhammad described a sign of the hour, that barefoot, destitute shepherds would compete in constructing tall buildings. At the time, this sounded implausible to the companions. How could those with nothing, those who once lived in tents, herded animals, and struggled to survive, suddenly rise to build monuments of wealth and pride? But today, the deserts of the Arabian Peninsula have transformed into landscapes of steel and glass. Cities that were once humble are now home to the tallest skyscrapers in the world. Tower after tower stretches into the sky, each trying to outdo the other. But this prophecy isn't just about architecture, it's about the transformation of the heart. The competition to build taller, shinier, more luxurious buildings is not a crime in itself. What makes it a sign is the motive behind it. When construction becomes a symbol of superiority, when the focus shifts from providing shelter to proving power, when wealth becomes a tool for pride rather than generosity, the spiritual illness begins. It is not the buildings that reach dangerous heights, but the arrogance that rises with them. Even more alarming is the second part of the sign that is often overlooked, the mocking of the poor. In a world where fortunes are spent on golden facades, artificial islands, and extravagant shopping malls, there are still people begging at the gates. The contrast is staggering, and so is the neglect. The poor are often not only forgotten, but blamed for their condition. Dignity is stripped away when wealth becomes the measure of worth. The very people who were once humble shepherds are now looking down, literally and metaphorically, on those in need. This sign speaks to a world where luxury is pursued with obsession and empathy is left behind. Where charity is advertised, but compassion is scarce. It is a reflection of a society that praises material growth but overlooks moral decay. The Prophet didn't merely warn us of what would be built, but of what would be lost in the process: humility, responsibility, and the remembrance that everything we own is a test, not a trophy. The Prophet Muhammad once said, "When the trust is lost, then await the hour." When asked what that meant, he explained, "When authority is given to those who do not deserve it." This profound statement captures the decay of leadership and responsibility that will mark the later days. Trust, or amanah in Islam, is more than just keeping a secret or fulfilling a promise. It is a sacred duty, an obligation to uphold justice, to protect rights, and to lead with sincerity and wisdom. When such a noble concept is handed to those who are unworthy, it signals the unraveling of the moral fabric that holds society together. Today we see people in positions of power, not because of their character or knowledge, but because of their wealth, popularity, or connections. Leaders arise who have no sense of accountability before Allah, who speak without knowledge, who rule with arrogance, and who manipulate their influence for personal gain. In many places, authority has become a spectacle rather than a service. Those who shout the loudest, who entertain the masses, or who appeal to desires are elevated, while the truly wise and sincere are pushed into the shadows. This prophecy is not limited to governments. It includes religious leadership, business, media, and even the family unit. When parents neglect their role, when scholars are chosen for their fame instead of their scholarship, when decision-makers serve their own interests instead of the people's needs, the trust is broken. And once trust is broken, confusion spreads. Truth becomes hard to find. People lose faith in systems, in leaders, and eventually even in each other. This isn't merely a warning, it's a mirror, a reflection of the state we are in. And while we may not always control who leads on a global scale, we can each choose to uphold the trust in our own lives, to be honest when it's easier to lie, to guide others when it's easier to stay silent, because in a world where trust is fading, those who carry it with integrity shine even brighter in the eyes of Allah. Among the signs of the hour that the Prophet Muhammad spoke of is a moment when the Euphrates River will uncover a mountain of gold, and people will fight over it until many lives are lost. He warned that whoever is present at that time should not take anything from it. This prophecy has puzzled scholars and believers for generations. Was it literal, symbolic, a metaphor for resources, or something deeper? Yet today, in light of the world's changing dynamics, this sign appears closer to reality than ever before. The Euphrates River, which flows through regions of Iraq and Syria, has been the lifeblood of civilizations for thousands of years. But in recent times, it has begun to dry up in alarming ways due to damming, climate change, and geopolitical conflict. As its waters retreat, what lies beneath becomes more exposed, land that was once hidden for centuries, now resurfacing. Some speculate this mountain of gold could be an actual physical treasure, long buried under the riverbed. Others believe it could represent oil, often referred to as the black gold, which has already brought unimaginable wealth and just as much devastation to the lands around it. Wars have erupted in the region, often under the pretense of politics and power, but closely tied to resources. Millions have died, countless families displaced, all while nations fight for dominance over what the earth holds. Whether literal gold or a symbol of immense value, the point is clear. The greed of man will be tested, and many will fail. The prophet's warning is not just about the material discovery, it's about the reaction to it. He described people fighting and killing one another, consumed by desire, blinded by ambition. This sign serves as a sobering reminder. When the earth reveals its secrets, it will not always be a blessing. Sometimes it will be a test, and only those who recognize the temporary nature of this world, who resist the urge to grab and claim, will be safe from the chaos that follows. The Euphrates may one day uncover its mountain of gold, but it will also expose the true state of the human heart. The Prophet Muhammad once foretold that there would come a time when members of his ummah would make lawful that which had clearly been declared unlawful. Among the things he listed were fornication, silk for men, alcohol, and musical instruments. This statement does not merely point to the presence of sin in the world, for sin has always existed. Instead, it highlights a dangerous transformation, when what is sinful is no longer hidden in shame, but is celebrated openly, even justified under the banner of culture, progress, or personal expression. Music, in particular, has become deeply embedded in modern life. From advertisements to entertainment, from weddings to social media, music is not just a background sound. It is often the centerpiece of emotional, cultural, and even spiritual expression. While scholars throughout Islamic history have held varying views on the permissibility of music, the warning of the Prophet isn't focused solely on the act itself. It's about the normalization of that which was once approached with caution and humility. What was once avoided by the righteous is now promoted by influencers. What was once whispered in private is now sung loudly in the masjid parking lot. The line between spiritual awakening and worldly entertainment has blurred. Some even go so far as to incorporate music into religious settings, believing that as long as the lyrics mention Allah or the Prophet, it must be acceptable. But the hearts that were once softened by Quranic recitation and sincere dhikr now beat to the rhythm of catchy hooks and emotional melodies. The soul becomes desensitized. This sign is not just about melody, it's about how easily we redefine the sacred to suit our desires. The moment something once forbidden is not only accepted but praised, it reveals a deeper shift. Not in rulings alone, but in reverence. The path to heedlessness does not begin with rebellion. It begins with comfort. And when music becomes the soothing drug that replaces silence, reflection, and sincere remembrance, then perhaps the prophecy has already come to pass in more hearts than we dare to admit. The Prophet Muhammad warned that near the end of time, many would claim to have received divine messages, and that there would arise among the Ummah individuals who lie about dreams, claim prophethood, or speak of visions meant to mislead. He said that truth in dreams would increase for the believer, but alongside that, there would also come 30 great liars who would each claim to be a prophet, even though the prophet made it clear, "I am the seal of the prophets, there is no prophet after me." This sign is not merely about one or two false claimants. It describes an age of spiritual confusion, where deception wears the robe of sincerity. In our time, it has become increasingly common to hear individuals claim that they saw Allah, spoke with angels, or were shown explicit revelations about the future. Some build entire movements on a dream. Others declare themselves chosen, enlightened, or uniquely guided, presenting themselves as divine messengers sent to correct or replace the religion. Their words might be beautiful, poetic even, and their followers sincere, but sincerity without truth is a dangerous road. Social media has only amplified this problem. A single video, a charismatic speaker, or a mysterious story can reach millions. It becomes easy for someone to say, "I had a dream where the prophet told me to do this," or "I saw an angel in my sleep who gave me special instructions." These narratives captivate the hearts of those looking for hope or wonder, but they also carry immense danger. When personal visions begin to replace divine revelation, when unverified dreams are used to alter religious principles or justify actions, the core of faith begins to erode. The danger lies not in having dreams, for true dreams exist and are a form of glad tidings for the believer. The danger lies in lying about them or giving them the weight of revelation. The Prophet taught us to measure everything by the Quran and Sunnah. No dream, no matter how vivid, can override that. The rise of false visionaries isn't a tale of the future. It's a reality unfolding before us. And in such times, the only protection is knowledge, sincerity, and unwavering faith in the finality of the message brought by Muhammad. The Prophet Muhammad said, "The hour will not come until the land of Arabia returns to being meadows and rivers." This statement, made over 1,400 years ago, was astonishing to those who first heard it. The Arabian Peninsula, known for its dry deserts and scorching heat, has long been one of the most arid regions on Earth. Yet the Prophet spoke of a time when it would return to greenery, suggesting not only a future transformation, but also hinting that it had once been lush, long before recorded history. In recent years, scientists have confirmed that the Arabian Peninsula was indeed green thousands of years ago. Fossilized remains, ancient riverbeds, and satellite imagery all show evidence of a time when the desert supported forests, wildlife, and flowing water. But what truly makes this prophecy remarkable is that we are beginning to witness its fulfillment in the modern era. Rainfall in parts of Saudi Arabia has increased. Flooding and unexpected greenery are no longer rare occurrences but have become more frequent. Images of camels walking through fields of grass in places that were once barren sand are spreading across the internet, as if nature is quietly whispering the fulfillment of the prophet's words. Beyond natural phenomena, there are also massive efforts underway to intentionally green the desert. Projects like Saudi Arabia's Green Initiative aim to plant billions of trees and reclaim vast stretches of land from the desert. Artificial lakes, modern irrigation, and climate adaptation are making what once seemed impossible become reality. But this prophecy is more than just an environmental prediction. It is a sign, one of the many that mark the approaching end of time. That such a dramatic change in the land foretold centuries ago is now happening before our very eyes should stir the soul. This transformation is not just a blessing of nature. It is a reminder of divine truth. A desert returning to life is a symbol of resurrection, of warning, and of hope. It tells us that Allah's promises are real, that His messenger spoke with divine knowledge, and that the signs of the hour are not just distant tales. They are unfolding now, written into the very soil of the earth. The signs of the Day of Judgment are not mere tales to entertain or frighten. They are not just ancient warnings passed down through generations. They are mirrors, reflecting the state of our world and the direction of our souls. Every sign, whether subtle or striking, is a reminder that this life is temporary, that time is slipping through our fingers, and that the unseen world is drawing nearer with each passing moment. We often hear these signs and nod in agreement, but then return to our distractions, our routines, and our habits unchanged. Yet the purpose of these signs is not to inform alone. It is to awaken, to shake us from heedlessness, to bring us back to Allah before we are brought back to Him. When the Prophet spoke of these events, he wasn't merely describing the future. He was guiding us toward a present filled with awareness, action, and repentance. These signs are not distant shadows on the horizon. They are here, around us, within us. They call upon us not to panic, but to prepare, not with fear, but with faith. Because in the end, what matters is not just what we witness in the world, but how we respond within our hearts.